Marriage doesn't break loudly. It breaks quietly, between unanswered questions, half smiles, and the growing space on a bed meant for two. For 12 years, I believed my marriage was solid. Not perfect, nothing ever is, but honest. We laughed at the same old jokes, argued about trivial things like whose turn it was to take out the trash, and fell asleep most nights with our feet touching, as if our bodies instinctively feared drifting too far apart. Her name was Emily. She used to talk a lot. About her day, about people she met, about things that annoyed her and things that made her dream. I loved listening. I loved knowing her world. But somewhere along the way, the talking stopped. At first, I told myself it was stress. Work had been hard on her. Everyone goes through phases, right? So I didn't push. I didn't complain. I didn't question. I just waited. And waiting, I would later learn, can be its own kind of betrayal, especially when you're the only one doing it. Emily started guarding her phone like it was an extension of her heartbeat. If I entered the room, she'd flip it face down. If I asked who she was texting, she'd answer too quickly. Just work. Always work. But she never talked about work anymore. At night, she would turn away from me, claiming she was tired. When I reached for her, she sighed, not in pleasure, but irritation. That sigh hurt more than rejection ever could. Still, I stayed quiet. Because love teaches you to give people the benefit of the doubt, even when doubt is screaming at you. The first crack. It happened on a Tuesday. Ordinary days are always the most dangerous. I was cleaning the house while Emily was out grocery shopping. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was just trying to be useful, trying to be the husband I thought she needed. I was organizing a drawer in the hallway when I noticed it felt heavier than it should. Beneath old receipts and forgotten batteries was a small fabric pouch. Black. Zipped shut. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe an old charger. Maybe spare keys. I unzipped it casually. And froze. Inside was a phone. Not her phone. Not the one I saw her use every day. This one was older. Thinner. Powered off. My heart didn't race immediately. It slowed. As if my body was preparing me for something it already knew but wasn't ready to admit. I stood there for a long time, holding it. Listening to the house. To the refrigerator humming. To my own breathing. Then I did something I would replay in my mind 1,000 times later. I turned it on. The moment everything shifted. The screen lit up. No lock screen. No password. That should have been my first warning. Messages began popping up immediately, notifications delayed by hours, maybe days. Names I didn't recognize. One name appeared more than any other. D. Just one letter. As if hiding behind simplicity made it less dangerous. I didn't open anything right away. My hands were shaking, but not violently. It was a controlled tremor, the kind that comes when your mind is still trying to protect your heart. Don't assume, I whispered to myself. Don't jump to conclusions. But denial is fragile. It cracks easily under truth. I opened the messages. At first, they were subtle. Miss you already. Today felt empty without you. Wish I was waking up next to you again. Again. That word echoed in my chest. This wasn't a beginning. This was a continuation. The mirror betrayal. The most painful part wasn't the flirting. It was the hypocrisy. Just days earlier, Emily had accused me of being emotionally distant. She had asked if I was hiding something. She had looked me straight in the eyes and said, "If you ever cheat on me, I'd leave without a second thought." I remembered nodding. Promising. Feeling guilty for things I hadn't even done. And now here I was, holding the proof that while she questioned my loyalty, she was building another life in secret. A mirror betrayal. Accusing me of the very thing she was doing. I scrolled further. There were voice notes. Photos, not explicit, but intimate. Her smile was different in them. Lighter. Freer. She never smiled like that with me anymore. I sat down on the floor, my back against the wall, the phone glowing in my hands like an accusation. 12 years. Reduced to pixels. When love turns quiet. I didn't cry right away. I felt numb. Hollow. As if someone had reached inside my chest and removed something vital without warning. The front door opened. Emily was home. I locked the phone and placed it back into the pouch, my movements slow and deliberate. I stood up, smoothed my shirt, and walked to the kitchen as if nothing had happened. She smiled at me. A normal smile. A lie so well practiced it scared me. "Hey," she said. "You okay?" I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized I didn't know who she was anymore. "I'm fine," I said. And that was the moment I understood something terrifying. The truth doesn't destroy you when you discover it. It destroys you when you realize how long you've been living beside it, without knowing. That night, Emily talked more than she had in weeks. It should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me. She told me about the grocery store being crowded, about a woman who cut in line, about a sale on cereal we didn't even like. She laughed at her own stories, glancing at me as if checking whether I was still there. I nodded. Smiled when I was supposed to. Responded with practiced normalcy. Inside, something was rotting. Every word she spoke felt rehearsed. Every laugh sounded like it belonged to someone else. And when she reached across the table and touched my hand, my body reacted before my mind could stop it. I flinched. She noticed. "You're so tense lately," she said gently. Did I do something wrong? There it was again. That familiar, subtle shift. The question that made me feel guilty for feelings she had caused. "No," I said quickly. Too quickly. "Just tired." She studied me for a moment longer, then smiled. "You should get more rest. You work too hard." I almost laughed. Because the truth was, I hadn't been resting at all. Sleepless nights. That night, she fell asleep easily. Her breathing slowed within minutes, steady and peaceful. I lay awake. Every time she shifted in bed, my mind replayed the messages. The words she had written to someone else while lying beside me. The intimacy she had given away so casually, as if 12 years were nothing more than a habit she'd outgrown. I turned slightly, watching her face in the dark. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? Years? I wondered how many times she had kissed me after kissing him. How many I love yous had been said out of obligation rather than truth. And the worst thought of all. How convincing she had been. Becoming invisible. Over the next few days, I noticed everything. The way she angled her phone away from me. The way she smiled at the screen before quickly wiping the expression from her face. The way she showered longer, dressed nicer, wore a perfume she hadn't touched in years. For someone who claimed I was emotionally distant, she seemed strangely energized, just not by me. I stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't care. Because I was afraid of the answers. Instead, I observed. Quietly. Carefully. Like a guest in my own marriage. One evening, I overheard her laughing in the other room. A soft, private laugh, the kind she used to reserve for me. When she noticed me standing there, her laughter cut off instantly. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "My cousin." A lie delivered too smoothly. I nodded. Sounded funny. She shrugged. "You know how she is." I did know. And I knew this wasn't her. The second look. 2 nights later, when Emily fell asleep on the couch, the house finally quiet, I stood in the hallway staring at the drawer. I told myself I wouldn't do it again. I told myself one look was enough. But truth doesn't loosen its grip once it has you. I retrieved the pouch. This time, I sat at the kitchen table, grounding myself before turning the phone on. I told myself to breathe. To stay objective. The messages had multiplied. Plans. Inside jokes. Memories they shared. Then I saw something that made my stomach twist. A voice message from her. I pressed play. Her voice filled the quiet kitchen. Soft. Intimate. Alive in a way I hadn't heard in years. I hate lying to him, she said. But I don't know how to leave. Not yet. Not yet. I paused the message and stared at the table. So I was a waiting room. A placeholder. A comfort she planned to discard once something better felt secure. I listened to the rest. He's a good man, she continued. That's what makes it harder. Good. As if goodness were a flaw. When confrontation isn't an option. I wanted to confront her. The urge burned in my chest, hot and immediate. I imagined slamming the phone down in front of her, demanding explanations, watching her scramble for excuses. But something stopped me. Not fear. Clarity. If I confronted her now, she would lie. Cry. Apologize. Or worse, blame me. She would turn this into a conversation about my flaws. My distance. My silence. And somehow, I'd walk away feeling like the villain. So instead, I waited. Because sometimes the strongest move isn't speaking. It's seeing everything clearly before you do. The weight of knowing. Carrying a secret like that changes you. I smiled less. Ate less. Slept even less than before. Every interaction with Emily felt like theater, and I was exhausted from pretending not to know the ending. She noticed. You're pulling away, she said one night, irritation slipping into her voice. If you don't want to be married anymore, just say it. I looked at her, then really looked. At the woman who was already halfway gone, accusing me of leaving. I'm still here, I said quietly. She scoffed. Physically, maybe. The irony was suffocating. A choice begins to form. That night, lying awake again, I realized something important. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to hurt her the way she had hurt me. I wanted truth. And more than that, I wanted my dignity. Whatever came next, I would not beg someone to choose me. I would not compete with the ghost she had created in secret. If this marriage ended, it would end because she chose deception, not because I lost myself trying to save it. And for the first time since finding the phone, I felt something shift. Not relief. Resolve. When lies start to slip. Once you know the truth, you start noticing how badly it wants to be revealed. Emily became careless. Not obviously so, she was still cautious, still guarded, but there were moments when the mask slipped. Small things. Dangerous things. She forgot to silence the secret phone one afternoon. It buzzed from inside her purse while we sat on opposite ends of the couch, pretending to watch television. Her body reacted before her mind did. She jolted, eyes wide, hand diving into the bag too fast. Too desperate. I didn't look at her. But she looked at me. Spam call, she said quickly. I nodded, my eyes fixed on the screen. She didn't relax for the rest of the evening. Distance with a pulse. The emotional distance between us no longer felt empty. It felt occupied. Like there was someone else in the room at all times, someone invisible, yet always present. Every time she smiled at her phone, I felt him there. Every time she withdrew from my touch, I felt his absence filling the space meant for me. She began criticizing small things. The way I chewed. The way I folded laundry. the way I asked how her day was. "You're being annoying lately," she snapped one morning. I stared at her, surprised. "I just asked if you slept well." She sighed dramatically. "See? This. Always hovering. Hovering. 12 years of marriage reduced to a nuisance." I apologized. Not because I was wrong, but because I was tired. The weekend lie. The real shift came when she mentioned a weekend trip. "My office is doing a retreat," she said casually over dinner. "Just 2 nights." I looked up from my plate. "Since when?" She shrugged. "They finalized it today." A familiar sensation settled in my chest. Heavy. I didn't argue. I didn't question. I didn't accuse. I smiled. "That sounds good," I said. "You deserve a break." She looked relieved. That night, after she fell asleep, I checked the secret phone. The messages confirmed everything. 2 nights isn't enough. I wish we could make it longer. I hate lying, but I love being with you. Love. She had never used that word lightly. I set the phone down carefully, as if sudden movement might shatter what little control I had left. The retreat was a lie. And she didn't even feel bad enough to be subtle anymore. The loneliest kind of strength. I didn't cry. I cleaned the kitchen. I washed the sheets. I took out the trash. There was something grounding about routine. Something powerful in continuing to function while your heart quietly collapses. That's when I realized something important. She thought I was weak. She mistook my silence for ignorance. My kindness for blindness. And maybe that was my fault for loving her in a way that never required proof. But strength doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits. Preparing without revenge. I started preparing, not emotionally, but practically. I gathered documents. I made copies of important files. I wrote down dates, times, patterns, not to trap her, but to protect myself from gaslighting. I needed clarity. Because when the confrontation came, I refused to question my own reality. Late one night, Emily sat beside me on the couch, unusually affectionate. She rested her head on my shoulder. "I feel like we've been disconnected," she said softly. I almost laughed. She traced circles on my arm. "I don't want us to drift apart." The irony was cruel. "What do you want?" I asked. She hesitated. "Just a second too long. I want us to be happy again." Again. As if happiness were something we'd simply misplaced rather than something she'd given away piece by piece. The question that changed everything. The night before her retreat, she packed carefully. Too carefully. Every outfit chosen with intention. Lingerie I hadn't seen in years folded neatly at the bottom of the bag. I watched from the doorway. "You're quiet," she said without turning around. "So are you," I replied. She stopped packing and looked at me. "Is something wrong?" There it was. The invitation to lie. The moment she expected me to doubt myself. I walked into the room slowly, my voice calm, controlled. "Is there anything you need to tell me before you leave?" Her eyes searched my face. "No," she said. "Why?" I nodded once. "Okay." And in that moment, I made my decision. I would not chase the truth anymore. I would let it walk into the room on its own. The calm before impact. That night, she slept soundly. I did not. But for the first time, I wasn't drowning in confusion. I was waiting. Because when someone lives a double life long enough, the lives eventually collide. And when they do, kindness becomes strength. Silence becomes power. And truth no longer asks for permission.